My future mother-in-law is trying to wear her own wedding dress to my wedding. For context, I'm a 28-year-old bride to be engaged to my fiancé, 30M, and we're in the final stages of planning our wedding. It's supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life, but instead, I'm caught in a nightmare battle with his mother. Let's call her Linda. Linda has always been a bit intense and opinionated, but I never imagined she could do something like this. When we announced our engagement a year ago, she was overjoyed. Or so I thought. She cried happy tears, hugged me, welcomed me to the family. I was genuinely excited to have her as my future MIO. Little did I know this was just the calm before a storm of wedding insanity. It started innocently enough. Early on, Linda offered me her vintage wedding gown to wear for my big day. At first, I was really touched. Her gown is a family heirloom. Her mother wore it, and her mother wore it before that. It's a lacy, long-sleeved, high-neck dress straight out of the 1980s, complete with puffy shoulders and a big train. Beautiful in its own right, but not at all my style. I gently told her I had already found my dream dress. I thanked her and explained that while I appreciated the sentiment, I had envisioned something different for myself. For some reason, that conversation didn't go well. Linda got quiet and her smile faltered. She said in a tight voice, "Oh, I just thought it would be nice to keep the tradition. But it's your wedding. Do what you want." I remember feeling so guilty, like I'd personally insulted her, even though I was as kind as possible. I even offered, maybe I could wear your dress for a photo or something, trying to appease her. She just shook her head and said, "Never mind, I was only trying to help." I should have recognized the warning sign. From that moment on, something shifted. Over the next few months, there were small comments, little passive-aggressive jabs, that I brushed off at first. If I mentioned a wedding detail, she'd chime in with, "My wedding was so simple back then, none of this fussy stuff," or, "I didn't need XYZ to have a great day." When we picked our venue, she reminisced loudly about how her reception in 1987 was in a church hall decorated by family, implying we were overdoing it by renting a nicer venue. I chalked it up to generational differences. My fiancé, Mark, would just roll his eyes and tell me, "Don't worry about Mom, she doesn't mean anything by it." Fast forward to last week, we were at dinner at Linda's house with Mark's parents and siblings. Out of nowhere, over dessert, Linda claps her hands and says, "I have exciting news about what I'm going to wear to the wedding." I half listened, sipping my coffee, assuming she'd found a dress she loved. She looked straight at me and said with a bright, almost defiant smile, "I've decided I'm going to wear my wedding dress." My coffee nearly spewed out of my mouth. The room went dead silent. Mark choked on his drink and started coughing. His dad was just staring at her like she'd grown a second head. Finally, I managed to respond, "Your wedding dress? You mean the one you married Dad in?" I was hoping I misunderstood. Maybe she meant a revamped version, or a piece of it. But in my gut, I knew. Linda nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, it's been preserved all this time, and I tried it on recently. Still fits like a glove. It's meant to be, don't you think? 3 generations have worn that dress, and since you decided not to," she paused to give me a tight smile, "I figured, why let it go to waste? It should be part of the celebration." I could feel my face getting hot. I was equal parts stunned, confused, and angry. I blurted, "Linda, you can't be serious." I tried to laugh a little, thinking surely she's joking to get a reaction. Wearing a wedding gown as someone else's wedding guest? Who does that? Her expression hardened. "Why not? It's my dress, from my wedding. I think it's a lovely idea. It's like I'm bringing a piece of our family history to your big day." She turned to Mark, expecting him to chime in and support her. Mark looked completely uncomfortable and said, "Mom, I don't think that's appropriate. You know, only the bride is supposed to wear white." Hearing him say that gave me a little relief. At least he was on my side there, at first. But Linda was ready for this. She let out an offended gasp as if we were the ones being outrageous. "This dress isn't just white, it's ivory, and it's an heirloom. You're really going to begrudge your mother this, on such a special occasion?" She directed at Mark, eyes wide with hurt. "Then came the guilt trip. I wore that dress when I married your father. I was so hoping to see my son's bride wear it too, but I understand. It's fine, new traditions. But if I want to wear my own dress to my own son's wedding, what's the harm in that? Who am I hurting?" I started to speak, but she steamrolled right over me, voice rising theatrically. "I gave birth to you, I raised you," she reminded Mark, "and this is how you thank me? By banning me from wearing something sentimental? I never thought my own son would treat me like some outsider at his wedding." She was actually getting teary-eyed. My future father-in-law looked down at his hands, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Mark's sister just mumbled, "Mom, it's really weird." But Linda shushed her. My heart was pounding at this point. I realized this was no joke. She was absolutely serious and already painting herself as the victim. I tried to stay calm. "Linda, I said, as evenly as I could. I understand the dress is special to you. It is a beautiful dress with a lot of meaning. But wearing it to our wedding, people will think you're trying to upstage me. I was trying to phrase it diplomatically, but I felt my voice shake. Traditionally, only the bride wears a wedding gown. It's a day about Mark and me, not anyone else's wedding. She let out a little laugh like I was an ignorant child. Oh, sweetie, no one could ever upstage you on your big day. You're the bride, of course. All eyes will be on you. Then she added, I'm just an old married woman who wants to celebrate her son. Why should I have to go buy a new expensive dress when I have a perfectly fine one right there? It's even the same color scheme you've chosen, ivory and gold, right? I looked at Mark pleadingly, silently asking him to help shut this down. He cleared his throat. Mom, even if it's ivory, it's still basically a wedding dress. It has a long train and veil and everything, right? Linda shrugged. I might not wear the veil, or I could maybe restyle it a bit. I'm not trying to be a bride, obviously. It's just for sentimental reasons. At this point, I was struggling to keep my composure. I said firmly, I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm sorry, I always imagined I'd be the only one in a wedding gown at my wedding. It means a lot to me. Linda's eyes flashed with anger. The mask of sweet helpfulness dropped. Fine, she snapped, pushing back her chair and standing up. If you're going to be so possessive about a dress, perhaps I should reconsider being there at all. I didn't realize I needed permission to dress a certain way for my own son's wedding. I was shocked. We're not saying you can't come, I exclaimed. I'm asking you not to wear that one particular dress. Mark stood up too, hands out in a calming gesture. Mom, come on. No one is uninviting you. Please, let's talk about this calmly. She dabbed her eyes dramatically with her napkin. No, if I'm not welcome to celebrate how I want, maybe I shouldn't intrude on your day. She practically spat the word, your. Then she turned and hurried out of the dining room, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. My future father-in-law sighed and gave us an apologetic look. He quickly followed after her, and we could hear them arguing in the other room. Her voice was high-pitched and frantic, something about disrespect and no one appreciates me. Mark's sister just whispered, I'm so sorry, looking mortified. I felt a lump in my throat, the stress and emotion catching up. Mark looked at me, took my hand, and we quietly left after his dad motioned that he'd handle Linda for now. The car ride home was silent at first, then I just burst into tears. The mix of anger, frustration, and hurt was overwhelming. How could she do this? Am I crazy here? Who does that? I vented through sobs. Mark kept saying, I know. I'm sorry, she's being ridiculous. But he also seemed really shaken up. I could tell he was torn, and that broke my heart a little. This is his mom, and she's basically threatening not to come to our wedding unless she can wear her wedding dress. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene in my head, getting angrier. By morning, I resolved that I wouldn't let her tantrum sway me. I told Mark that under no circumstances could his mother wear that dress to our wedding. I expected him to immediately agree. After all, he'd seemed to support me at dinner. And he did, at first. He said, of course I don't want her to wear it, it's crazy. But then he followed up with, but what are we going to do? She might actually decide not to come. I don't know what I'd do if Mom isn't there on my wedding day. I stared at him, feeling a mix of disbelief and disappointment. So you're okay with her blackmailing us? With her basically holding our wedding hostage unless we let her do this insane thing? He looked pained. No, I'm not okay with it. I know how she is. If we push too hard, she really might boycott, or make the day miserable in other ways. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mark, do you hear yourself? Your mom is acting like a spoiled child, and instead of telling her off, you're thinking of giving in because you're afraid of her ruining the wedding. He ran his hands through his hair. I just want peace. I don't want my family fighting on our wedding day. I shot back. And you think I do? You think I want to be worrying about your mother on our day, when I should be enjoying marrying you? He came over and hugged me, and I stood stiff in his arms at first. You're right, he murmured. This is our day. I'm sorry. I'll talk to her again. I'll make it clear she can't wear it, even if I have to beg her. I pulled away and looked at him. It's not about begging, Mark. It's about telling her firmly, setting a boundary. If she chooses not to come because she can't wear a certain dress, that's her decision. But I will not be bullied on my wedding day in order to appease her. I surprised myself with how decisive I sounded, but inside I was quaking. This could really blow up. The next day, Mark called his mom while I was at work. I got the play-by-play later that evening. Apparently, it did not go well. He tried to reason with her calmly. He told her we love her and want her there, but her wearing that dress would cause a lot of unnecessary drama and attention. According to Mark, she initially was cold and said things like, I didn't realize your future wife had such a hold over you. When he insisted this was both of us feeling this way, she declared, well, I don't see what the big deal is. It's a dress. Who cares? People would only care if the bride is insecure or if she looks terrible in comparison. Yes, she actually said that. That comment made me see red when he relayed it. Then, apparently, her tone shifted to wounded again. She said she felt unappreciated and unwanted, that she might as well not even come since clearly I'm just a nuisance. She accused Mark of taking my side over hers blindly and said, a good son would want his mother to be happy on such an important day too. Cue my eyes rolling into the back of my head. Mark tried to assure her we want her to be happy and suggested perhaps she could wear something else of sentimental value, maybe a piece of her mom's jewelry, or incorporate the lace from the dress into a shawl. But no, she wasn't having it. She apparently ended the call by saying, I'll think about what I'm going to do. You two have made your position clear, and she hung up on him. So that's where we are now. Our wedding is 6 weeks away. 6 weeks, and I'm stuck in this bizarre standoff with my future mother-in-law over her wedding gown. Part of me can't even believe we're seriously arguing about this. I mean, is this real life? I've heard of MILs wearing white to compete with the bride, but wearing her actual wedding dress from 30 years ago? It sounds like some twisted fairy tale villain story. I'm trying to stay calm, but I'm a mix of anxious and furious. One minute I feel resolve like, screw it, if she wants to play chicken with us by not attending, let her not attend. We'll have a great day without her. But then I see how it hurts Mark. He hasn't said it outright, but I know him. The thought of his mom not being there, or being there and making a scene, is eating him up. He's normally such a happy, easygoing guy, and I hate that this is stressing him out. Meanwhile, my own family and bridal party are aware of the situation now. I confided in my mom, and she told a couple of my aunts, and you know how that goes. Now it's all around the grapevine. They're livid on my behalf. My mom wants to call Linda and give her a piece of her mind, but I've held her off because that would probably make everything 10 times worse. Mom maid of honor joked, half-joked, that if Linda does show up in that dress, she has a plan to accidentally spill a whole bottle of red wine on her. As satisfying as that image is, I really hope we don't get to that point. I don't want a war on my wedding day. Still, I'm growing more anxious by the day. Every time my phone rings, I tense up thinking it might be Linda stirring up more drama. I find myself second-guessing decisions like, should we hire security to keep an eye on guest attire? That seems extreme and absurd, right? But I just don't know what she might pull. She could show up in the dress anyway, thinking once she's there we'll all just cave to avoid a scene. And maybe worst of all, part of me is starting to resent Mark for not handling this more forcefully. I love him so much, and he's truly a good man, but he's always had a blind spot when it comes to his mom. She can be very manipulative and fragile acting, and he's been conditioned to keep her happy. This is probably the biggest test of our relationship so far. I made it clear to him. If she shows up in that gown and he doesn't back me up in stopping her, I don't know if I can go through with the ceremony. I can't begin my marriage with the person who's supposed to love me most in the world betraying me for his mother on our wedding day. He was horrified when I said that. He promised that of course he'd have my back. He said if she actually does that, I'll personally walk her out or make her change. I want to trust him, I do. But I'm also mentally preparing myself for the worst, because with Linda anything could happen. This whole situation is draining the joy out of what should be such a happy time. I always dreamed of a beautiful wedding surrounded by family who are genuinely supportive and excited for us. Instead, I feel like I'm tiptoeing around this ridiculous drama. I keep asking myself, is there any way to fix this? Is there some compromise I'm not seeing? Or do I just stand my ground and brace for impact? Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting like, is it really that bad if she wears it? Then my brain screams, yes, it's insane, don't doubt yourself. I've tried to empathize with her. She probably feels like she's losing her son in a way, or maybe she's reliving her youth. But even with that empathy, I can't justify what she's doing. It's so far over the line. I'm posting this here because I genuinely don't know how to proceed. I feel like I'm stuck in a no-win situation. Either I let her do this and forever feel bitter that I got walked over at my own wedding, or I hold my ground and risk an ugly family rift, possibly even drama during the ceremony. Neither option is what I want as I start married life. So that's my life right now, battling my future mother-in-law over a damned wedding dress. I feel ridiculous even typing that sentence, yet here I am. I love my fiancé dearly, but as mother, I just don't know what to do anymore. We have 6 weeks left. 6 weeks for this to either somehow resolve or explode. Wish me luck, I guess, because I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Update 1. First of all, thank you to everyone who reached out and offered advice and support. It's been a couple of weeks since my original post, and things have been eventful to say the least. I wish I had better news, but here's what's happened since. After that explosive dinner confrontation, Linda, my FMIL, basically went radio silent on us for a while. She didn't call or text me or Mark for over a week. Mark tried calling her a few times to check in, but She either didn't answer or kept it brief and avoided the topic of the dress entirely. It was eerie, like the calm before another storm. In the meantime, Mark and I strengthened our resolve. We agreed again that no matter what, she was not wearing that dress to our wedding. I could tell he was hurting, though. He missed talking to his mom. They usually chat every other day, and her cold shoulder was clearly getting to him. About 2 weeks before the wedding, we decided to try one more olive branch. Mark suggested we invite his parents over to our place for dinner, on neutral territory, to calmly discuss everything. I was hesitant. Frankly, the last thing I wanted was another fight, but I knew it was important to him, so I agreed. When his parents arrived, Linda was polite but very aloof. She hugged Mark and gave me a stiff hello. During dinner, we made small talk about work and whether anything but the elephant in the room. Finally, as we were clearing the plates, Mark gently broached the subject. He said, "Mom, we really want you at the wedding. It wouldn't be the same without you there." She just sipped her wine and said, "Well, I don't know if I'm feeling very welcome." I jumped in softly. "Linda, of course you're welcome. I'm sorry things got so heated. We really hope you come. She cut me off, putting her glass down a bit hard. "You just don't want me to wear my dress. Yes, I got that." Her eyes were already glistening with tears. Mark reached for her hand across the table, but she pulled it back. "Mom, please understand. That dress, it puts us in a terrible position. We never wanted to hurt you. We just want our day to be about us." She inhaled sharply, composing herself. Then, in a surprisingly calm voice, she said, "All right, I've thought a lot about it. I don't want this to tear us apart. You're my only son, Mark. I don't want to miss your wedding." My heart cautiously lifted when I heard that. She continued, "I still feel hurt that my intentions were misunderstood, but I can see that my presence is more important than the dress." She actually choked up a little saying that. I was stunned. Was she really relenting? I glanced at Mark, and he looked equally surprised and relieved. He squeezed her shoulder and said, "Mom, of course your presence is more important. We love you. I'm so glad you understand." I felt a wave of relief and spoke up. "Thank you, Linda. It means so much to us that you'll be there and that we can put this behind us." And I truly meant it. She gave a small nod, looking down at her hands. "I'm sorry if I caused a fuss," she said quietly. I wanted to feel included. That dress. Well, it's hard for me to let go of some things." I found myself feeling a bit of empathy. This sounded like a genuine moment of vulnerability. I told her I understand. Traditions and memories are really powerful. Maybe we can find another way to include the dress somehow, like display a photo of you in it at the reception, or have a piece of its lace wrapped around my bouquet. That was an idea a commenter actually suggested, and I thought it was a nice compromise. Linda actually smiled at that, a real smile. "Perhaps," she said. "We'll see. Thank you for offering that, dear." We ended the night on what felt like a positive note. When they left, I felt a huge weight off my shoulders. Mark actually twirled me around in the kitchen after closing the door. He was so happy and relieved. We both thought, finally, this nightmare is over. His mom seemed to accept the compromise, and we genuinely believed she wouldn't try to wear the dress anymore. But, and of course there's a but, things are never that simple with Linda, it seems. A few days later, my maid of honor, let's call her Jenna, and I went to a final fitting for my wedding gown. As we were leaving the bridal salon, guess who we run into, just coming in? Linda, carrying a garment bag. We stood face to face in the lobby, and she looked just as shocked to see me as I was to see her. Jenna immediately noticed the bag and later told me she had a bad feeling, but in the moment I was just kind of frozen. I managed a polite, surprised, "Oh, hi, Linda. What brings you here?" She hesitated, then said, "Oh, I was just getting something altered." Her tone was defensive, and she clutched the garment bag a little tighter. My eyes flicked to the bag, and I recognized the Preservation Company logo on it, the same one from the box that holds her wedding dress. My stomach dropped. She must have noticed, because she quickly added, "It's just a dress I had that needed some updating, nothing important." She tried to smile, but it looked forced. I didn't know what to say, and an awkward silence fell. Jenna stepped in smoothly with a bright, fake smile and said, "Well, we've got to run. See you at the rehearsal, Linda." She basically dragged me out by my arm. Once we were outside, I lost it. I started panicking. Was that the dress in Linda's bag? Why was she at my bridal salon with it? Was she still planning to wear it after all, despite everything? Jenna tried to calm me down. She suggested that maybe Linda was repurposing the fabric into a new outfit, or dyeing it a different color, trying to give any plausible, innocent explanation. But I just had this gut feeling that none of those were true. If it were something innocent, why did she act so startled and guilty? That night, I told Mark about the encounter. He looked troubled, but tried to reassure me. Maybe she really is altering it into something else, he said. She did seem to take the talk well. Maybe she decided to tailor it into a smaller piece, like a shawl or something, to wear without causing a fuss. I could tell he was clinging to any hope. I didn't want to fight, so I said, maybe, I hope so. But inside, I was far from convinced. As the wedding day drew closer, my anxiety spiked again. The uneasy truce with Linda felt like it was built on quicksand. She continued to be mostly cordial in our limited interactions. We saw her at the rehearsal, and she was polite, wearing a normal blue dress that day, nothing crazy. She even gave me a hug at the rehearsal dinner and said, "I'm proud of you both." It felt almost too nice, like the eye of the hurricane. The night before the wedding, I barely slept, again. I found myself rereading advice from folks who commented on my first post, mentally steeling myself for any possibility. We had come so far, and I wanted to trust that it would be okay, but I also knew I couldn't be naive. Mark tried to assure me one last time. She wouldn't have looked me in the eye and promised to behave if she didn't mean it. Mom's not evil, she's just emotional. I didn't want to argue, so I nodded. But I secretly asked Jenna and another bridesmaid to be on spill duty with a glass of red wine if worst came to worst. They happily agreed. My friends have been my rock through all this and were fully prepared to back me up. And now, here we are. It's the morning of my wedding. I'm sitting here writing this update when I probably should be getting my makeup done or something. Mark is in the next room with his groomsmen, and I can hear them laughing about something. I want to feel that same excitement and joy. But there's this tension coiled in me because I just know something is still off. Maybe I'm paranoid, or maybe not. Linda, as far as I know, is still coming today. After our dinner talk, she never explicitly said otherwise. Actually, she hasn't been in touch much, except through my future FIL, who mentioned yesterday that Linda is looking forward to tomorrow. I hope that's true, in a good way. I'll update again after the wedding, hopefully with nothing dramatic to report. But if you've read this far, you know by now that drama tends to follow Linda wherever she goes. I'm hoping for the best, but prepared for the worst. Let's see what happens. Update 2. I promised an update after the wedding, so here it is, though it's not the happy post I hoped to write. Yesterday was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it turned into a scene from a nightmare. Linda actually went through with it. She showed up to our wedding wearing her wedding dress. The ceremony was set to start at 4 p.m. I was in the bridal suite with my dad, moments from walking down the aisle. I remember my heart pounding, not just from normal wedding jitters, but from this gnawing fear that something would go wrong. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna, my MOH, waiting outside with the bridesmaids. "We have a problem. It's Linda. I'm so sorry." Apparently, Linda arrived late on purpose, just as everyone was seated and the processional music was starting. She walked in with my future father-in-law, took off her coat, and revealed that ivory monstrosity, her wedding gown. Gasps rippled through the crowd of our friends and family. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. My bridesmaids, per our plan, sprang into action. Jenna quickly intercepted Linda at the back of the aisle, whispering furiously for her to step outside. I wasn't there, but from what I heard later, Linda just brushed her off and kept walking to her seat in the front row. So there I was, unaware of the specifics but knowing something was very wrong. Jenna's text had me shaking. I could hear muffled commotion from outside the closed doors. My dad squeezed my hand, asking me what was happening. I didn't even know what to tell him. Before I could do anything, the doors opened for the bridal procession. I'll never forget the look on Mark's face as I emerged. His eyes were on me, but his expression was distracted, alarmed. Then I saw why. To my right, in the front row, was Linda in all her white lace glory, seated and dabbing her eyes with a tissue as if nothing was wrong. I froze. Literally, I stopped in my tracks halfway down the aisle. Everything after that feels like a blur, but I'll try to recount it. People were craning their necks, looking between me and Linda, whispering. Mark stepped forward from the altar, like he was about to come get me, thinking I was overcome with emotion. I mean, I was, but not the kind he thought. I was trembling with anger and humiliation. The audacity, I just couldn't believe it. Linda looked back at me with this doe-eyed innocent face, as if confused why I had stopped. I heard myself say, very softly, "Is this some kind of joke?" The officiant coughed. Mark reached me by then and grabbed my hands. He whispered, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know she'd do this." He looked genuinely panicked, which weirdly made me even more upset. I realized he truly hadn't prepared for this. He thought she wouldn't dare, and he was wrong. At this point, guests were realizing that I'd stopped because of Linda. My mom had a thunderous look and actually stood up, but my dad, who was holding my arm, gently pulled me back a step, maybe thinking we could still salvage this quietly. I looked at Mark and asked under my breath, "Did you know? Did you?" He shook his head frantically. "No, I swear, I'll handle it. Just go back to the suite for a minute." I could tell he was trying to keep me calm, but it was too late for calm. There was a low murmur as I turned around and bolted back through the doors with my dad right behind me. It's not my proudest moment, but I just couldn't stand there another second. I burst into tears the second I was out of sight. According to my bridesmaids, who filled me in later, as soon as I ran off, all hell broke loose outside. My mom and bridesmaids confronted Linda. Jenna, true to her promise, attempted the red wine accident, but Linda dodged, so Jenna mostly splashed wine on the floor and just a few drops on Linda's dress. That sent Linda into a shrieking fit. She called Jenna a vindictive little girl. Then my mom jumped in, yelling that Linda should be utterly ashamed of herself. Guests were gasping and murmuring. Some initially thought I had fainted or something, until they realized the real issue. Mark, apparently, was just standing there in shock and despair, torn between chasing after me and dealing with the escalating fight. My father-in-law, bless this man, finally stepped in and shouted, "Enough!" People actually went quiet. He was red in the face with anger. He turned to Linda and, as Mark relayed later, said something like, "Look at what you're doing. Is this what you want? To ruin our son's wedding?" Linda started bawling, like full-on wailing, that she was the one being attacked. She kept saying things like, "This is my family's tradition, and I just wanted to be part of this." And, "She's the one ruining it by being so selfish." Yes, apparently she was blaming me for the scene, even though I'd fled to avoid one. Finally, Mark found his voice. Jenna told me that in a tone she'd never heard from him, he said, "Mom, you need to leave. Now." Linda just cried harder and wailed, "I can't believe you would do this to your own mother, Mark." She refused to budge. The groomsmen had come down from the altar at this point, looking unsure if they needed to physically intervene. My brother, a groomsman, later told me he was seconds away from picking Linda up and carrying her out. From inside the bridal suite, I could hear muffled yelling. I was crying and shaking, trying not to hyperventilate, as my dad and one of my bridesmaids tried to comfort me. I could hear Mark's raised voice, but not the words. A cold numbness washed over me. I knew my wedding was being wrecked in real time. After maybe 10 minutes of chaos, Mark came into the bridal suite. He looked disheveled and broken. His eyes were full of tears. He said quietly, "She's gone. I made her leave." I just stared at him, unable to speak. He reached out for me, but I pulled back. I was so hurt, not by him exactly, but by everything. I asked, "How could you let it get this far?" He started crying then, saying he was sorry that he'd never imagined she would actually do it. He said he felt like he just had to choose between his mother and me, and he chose me. He explained that Linda left in hysterics and his dad took her home, and that he doesn't even know if she'll be okay. I could see he was devastated. Despite my own anger, a part of me ached for him. This was exactly the kind of hell he never wanted, and it happened anyway. Our guests were still sitting in confused silence, I guess, or milling about. Some had left the ceremony area entirely. Through the small window of the suite door, I saw a few people standing around looking concerned. It was a mess. Mark asked me, voice trembling, Do you still want to get married today? We don't have to. We can postpone, do it another time. Or we can do it now. Just focus on us." I looked at him, this man I love, who looked utterly crushed, and honestly, I didn't know what I wanted in that moment. A big part of me just wanted to flee. But another part looked at his face and realized this was a crossroads for us. If we didn't go through with it, would that mean Linda effectively won? Would her actions have destroyed our day completely? I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. Yet going back out there and acting like everything was fine felt impossible. I was a wreck. My makeup was ruined, my emotions were raw. Ultimately, after a lot of back and forth between me, Mark, and our families outside, we decided to go ahead with a very scaled-down ceremony. It was more like we stumbled through it, to be honest. We did a quick exchange of vows in front of whoever was still there. Some guests had left or were standing in the back. There was no grand processional or recessional. I didn't even put my heels back on. I walked down the aisle for the second time in flats, eyes puffy from crying, holding Mark's hand. Our officiant, who looked as rattled as we were, quickly pronounced us husband and wife. There was a weak, awkward applause. It was the most anticlimactic, somber celebration imaginable. After that, we skipped straight to a simple dinner because everyone was hungry and emotionally drained. The reception I'd planned for a year was basically dead. The cake was cut without fanfare. The DJ played some soft background music, but nobody really danced except a couple of little kids who had no idea what had happened. Most guests ate quietly and offered us sympathetic smiles or hugs. The whole thing wound down early, with people trickling out and giving us condolences instead of congratulations. Mark and I decided not to go on our honeymoon as scheduled. Instead of jetting off to a tropical beach, we're holed up in our apartment, feeling shell-shocked. I don't even know what to say to him. Every time I close my eyes, I see Linda in that dress and hear the chaos that followed. Mark has been alternating between profusely apologizing to me and angrily ranting about how he can't believe his mother did that. He's also worried sick about her. Apparently she isn't answering his or his dad's calls. I get it. She's his mom and he loves her, but I'm so furious at her, and honestly still a bit at him even though logically I know it's not his fault, that I can't share that concern right now. So that's where things stand. Instead of feeling like a happy newlywed, I feel hollow. I did marry the man I love, but it feels like a battle-scarred victory, and our relationship with Linda is in tatters. Part of me wonders if this is a glimpse of future struggles. I'm committed to Mark, and he to me, but I told him in no uncertain terms that I will never go through something like that again. He promised me that Linda would not be part of our lives until she makes a massive change or apology, but I know it's going to get complicated around holidays, or if we have kids someday. Honestly, I'm writing this update, sitting on my couch, wedding dress hanging in the closet, feeling more exhausted than I've ever been. The day that was supposed to start our happily ever after became a day I'll try my best to forget. There's no neat bow to tie on this. It's messy and sad and just done. I'm glad something of the wedding went ahead, but it was nowhere near what we deserved.